Marvel movies, you either love them, or you hate them, or you have no strong feelings one way or the other. Either way, it's not that hot of a take to say Marvel has kind of fallen off recently. With Ant-Man Quantumania failing to live up to the standards set by the two previous films, their first foray into another universe with Multiverse of Madness ultimately not living up to the hype either, most fans completely turning against Love and Thunder, and of course the historic bomb of the Marvels. Here's the thing though, DC movies can't really say they haven't been bombing either too. Sure, there have been some good ones like Shazam, The Suicide Squad, Aquaman, Joker, The Batman, but honestly those are few and far between, so whenever DC gets a win it's massively celebrated, and when Marvel gets a loss it's massively shocking. At least things are starting to look up for DC with James Gunn now at the helm starting up the new DCU, but I want to take a look today at a movie that every comic book movie should strive to be like. This movie is called Blue Beetle. People shouldn't take this as oh DC is better than Marvel, because that's not what this is. DC and Marvel should take notes from this movie, because this movie is what a comic book superhero movie should be, and I believe it's the gold standard for any superhero movie. Doesn't matter if it's Marvel or DC, it's the gold standard for any superhero movie in general. Why do I think this? Well, let's take a look and find out why. This is why I think Blue Beetle is comic book movie peak fiction. The movie begins and it immediately sets up our two main baddies, Carapax, played by Raul Max Trujillo, and Victoria Cord, played by Susan Sarandon, who look to be searching inside of an ancient stone for some kind of item. Already you have a brand new take on the origin of the scarab. Unless some more educated Blue Beetle fans can correct me in the comments, I don't think Victoria or Carapax were even part of Blue Beetle's original origin. Already 2 minutes in and the movie is telling us, hey, we're going to tell you the story of Blue Beetle, but maybe not in the way you're going to expect. The scene following this is the title card, but it's also a really awesome flashback from Kaji Das' perspective of him flying through space in search of a host. It's a really awesome opening scene with a bunch of other newspaper clippings that try and help you piece together where they are in the story already, all told to the theme of that incredible kick-ass synth brass combo score. So we now go to Jaime's perspective as he lands from college into Palmera City and meets with his family. Okay, this is going to be the only time I want to acknowledge Jaime's connection to me personally. In case you didn't know, Jaime is Mexican, and if you didn't know, your boy here is also Mexican. I wanted to make this as clear as possible. I don't just like Jaime because we have the same skin color. His heritage is important in this movie and we are going to talk about it, but personally I don't just like Blue Beetle solely because of his background. There's other cool things to like about him too, his power set, his origins, the goddamn reach. Okay, let me not get too ahead of myself because we've still got 2 hours and 2 minutes left of movie to cover, so that's just everything I wanted to say on this. Okay, back to the video. A detail that you'll find is pretty noticeable is that Jaime and his family all speak Spanish without any subtitles. I'll be sure to translate it and let you guys know if there's anything important that you need to know, but this casual disregard for most people who just can't speak Spanish I think helps form a more personal connection to people that do understand it, and I don't know for anyone else, but it just makes the atmosphere more casual and laid back. I think right now might also be a good time to talk about the family. First up we've got, oh man, my TTS is going to butcher the hell out of these names, Damian Alcazar as Alberto Reyes aka Jaime's father. I absolutely love his energy, and if you know Mexican dads, they usually come on a spectrum. Alberto is more on the granddad, posing as a dad. He does good, but he more reminds me of a grandpa more than a dad, but still, he does give an amazing performance. Next is Adriana Barraza as Nana Reyes. She's really good too, and the makeup on her is just absolutely incredible. If you didn't tell me she was this young looking then I probably wouldn't have known, and she absolutely kills it here, being able to deliver some of the hardest and most emotional performances in the entire movie. Next is Elpidia Carrillo as Rocio Reyes, aka Jaime's mother. She's really good here too. I actually do buy her more as a mom than Damien. Again, I'm not saying his performance is bad, there's a scene coming up that is going to, oh my god. Let's just keep talking about the cast. Elisa Escobedo is next as Milagro Reyes, aka Jaime's sister. Again, the two have incredible chemistry together and are both amazing as a brother and sister duo. Alright, let's get to the character you really wanted to hear my thoughts on. George Motherflippin Lopez as Rudy Reyes. I absolutely love him. All these years and still hasn't lost his touch. He's really out here bringing the funniest lines in the movie, he's just really awesome. But nah, for real, let's talk about Colo Maridueña as Jaime. He's so good here. This casting is bordering on Iman Vellani Miss Marvel levels of perfect. God, how is this movie's casting this good? Okay, back to the movie. Palmera City is drenched in LA/Cali vibes, it's even smothered in those iconic Mexican beats. I absolutely love it. Anyways, Jaime finds out that they're going to lose the house after they already lost the auto shop, and that his dad also had a heart attack, so Jaime has to go get a job and save his home. He eventually gets a job as a cleaner, and we meet another important character to this story, Jenny Cord, a character who has never actually been a part of the Blue Beetle comics, but hey, she's a welcome addition. Also, this is another example of changing the story for the better. In the comics, the Scarab somehow finds his way to Jaime after Ted Cord's, aka the second Blue Beetle's, death/retirement. But in this adaptation, Jenny gives Jaime the Scarab because of her aunt's relaunch of the OMAC program, which is a symbiotic war robot armor, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So Jenny confronts Victoria about OMAC while Jamie watches Milagros back while she shits. Jaime stands up for Jenny and then gets fired from his job, so Jenny gives him her number so he can get a new job at Cord Industries. After some cyber stalking, Jaime has a really sweet moment with his dad, where they talk about their purpose in life and how they've only reached a stop on their journey. Again, Damien and Colo absolutely kill it, and absolutely solidify their father and son chemistry. It's just so beautiful I could cry. So anyway, now we can talk about the origin changes. Jenny steals the Scarab, which is the thing that's basically the blueprint for the OMAC program. She then gives it to Jamie, who bonds with it. Again, the original origin is almost the same, but it's not such a dramatic change that you can't recognize the character anymore. Cough, Miss Marvel cough, but it's still a new direction for the story to take, since if they tried to do the original, there's a million characters they'd have to introduce, and telling it this way is quick, concise, and tells you everything you have to know, and honestly it's borderline perfect. Also, the transformation is so cool, the burning, the effects, it's all so freaking cool. It's not super stereotypically heroic, and it makes sense for an alien war machine. Also, I have to gush about this design, it's literally perfect. There has literally been no other superhero costume as perfectly adapted as this. This costume is so perfect I nearly teared up when I saw the set pictures, and yeah, I said set pictures, this isn't CG but a physical costume made for this movie. I could keep going on about how perfect this costume is, but you get it. This scene with Kajita finally activating is so good too. All of Kaji's constructs are so alien and cool looking. The only part I don't really like is Kaji's UI. I think it could look a bit cleaner. Right now it looks like a bad Rugrats title card. Kajita eventually lands him back home, so now he naturally wants answers, so he's going to see Jenny now. Anyway, Jenny is found out and Jaime takes her to his house, in which his family promptly interrogates her. She thinks that if they can find the key to Ted's Beetle base, not its real name, they might be able to pull the scarab out, so Rudy brings his truck and the hacking commences thanks to the Chapulin, which I assume hijacks the video frequencies to play episodes of El Chapulin Colorado over and over. So anyway, security calls Carapax and on the way out Blue Beetle's first fight commences. So let's talk about Carapax since we haven't seen him in a while. Out of Blue Beetle's entire rogues gallery of semi-iconic villains, why Carapax? He's probably on the lower end of iconic Blue Beetle supervillains. Personally, I think an obscure villain deep cut like Carapax is actually a really good decision for this movie. You don't want to bust out heavy hitters like Black Beetle or The Reach for your first movie and just kill them off at the end. It effectively leaves you no more iconic villains to reuse, and for what they do with Carapax in this movie, I think they do a pretty good job of using him effectively by tying him into both Jamie and Jenny's stories respectively. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Let's talk about the fight scene. But first, can we talk about Carapax's OMAC armor real quick? Spoilers for later in the movie, but he later gets a more comic accurate version, but this one is also really cool looking, and to those of you saying, herder, it's just a villain with the same powers fighting the hero, to that I say no, not yet anyway. This version of the OMAC armor is more primitive and less refined, which is why it only relies on firearms and militaristic weaponry, unlike Jaime who's rocking the original. And let me tell you, Carapax is actually giving him the business here. He's just so savage, so untamed, it's so good. And most of the fight Jaime is just trying to reason with the guy, and until the scarab takes control he's just getting wrecked. But oh boy, when he does, it gets awesome. It looks like a high budget Power Rangers / Kamen Rider fight. It's so awesome, holy shit. He even does the Sonic Blaster thing from his Injustice 2 moveset. And the swords, oh my god, the swords. This costume is so beautiful. Sorry I said I would stop gushing over the costume, it's just, my god, is this costume so good. Anyway, Jaime tells Kaji that he's not a killer and he apparently listens. And just decides not to fight anymore, leading Carapax to fuck him up some more until Rudy just comes in and hits him with the Chapulin. Honestly, points for subversion. I sincerely thought he was going to hit him with the truck. Now they have the key, and they head to the Beetle base. Okay, I can't keep calling this thing the Beetle base, I'm going to look up what it's actually called. The Beetle Nest? Do beetles even have nests? Whatever, I'm sticking with Beetle Base. Anyway, they make it to the Beetle Base at Ted's estate, and I got to say I really love the way this whole base thing here looks. I mean, if you look close you can even see Dan Garrett and Ted Kord's old superhero suits. Also, I like how Ted has this whole high-tech superhero base and yet inside he has the most nerdy and retro shit imaginable. Like he can afford this whole secret underground base but for some reason keeps these old CRT monitors around. Also, I love this quote.
Oh, but I mean, like, look at this. It's like Batman stuff, but like if he had ADHD or something?
This jacket Jaime is wearing also has to be a reference to something, someone let me know. So Jenny also goes into how her mom changed her dad's life, and it's a really sweet moment, which makes it all the more sad when after she died Ted started obsessing after the scarab hard, and then one day he never came back. Jenny's actress absolutely kills it here. So they figure out that Ted's old professor Dan Garrett had the scarab before he did, and that the only way that they can get it out is if Jaime dies. So naturally he freaks out, and so Jamie and Rudy talk on the roof, and talks about how hard it was for his dad to come out on top and do everything he could to provide for his family. And trust me, if someone tells you George Lopez can't do serious scenes, show them this one. That'll shut them up real quick. This scene is phenomenal. But the scene coming up next just hits. If you're not Mexican or never had a Mexican old head tell you what it was like, living every day in fear knowing that everything you built could come crumbling down with a snap. Then this scene might not click, but for me it clicks hard. Victoria sends her personal army into the Reyes home and tries to kidnap them, but Jamie flies back to defend them, leading to another awesome fight scene. Unfortunately, in the struggle, Jaime's father succumbs to another heart attack while Jaime can only watch as his home and father die before his very eyes, helpless to do anything as he's neutralized and taken away by Victoria. This scene is pure and raw emotion, and there are no words to describe it. The Reyes family is left to their own devices and mourn their loss, but pull it together to form a plan with Jenny to rescue Jaime, who is currently being held hostage by Victoria, who plans to transfer schematics from the Scarab into Carapax's OMAC. We also get to see some of Ted's old gear. It's really cool and funny how in the mix with the bug ship and all the sci-fi futuristic technology is prototype exploding gum and a modified power glove. Again, it just adds so much to this version of Ted Cord, and I love it. We also get to see some more nerdcore tech when Rudy activates the brakes, quote unquote, to the bug ship. Instead of it just stopping, two giant parachutes just fly out the back. The amount of character building they do for a character absent from the whole movie is awesome. We also get a really cool fight scene between Victoria's soldiers and the bug ship. I love how powerful the bug ship is in the scene, and yes, I don't even mind a bug fart because the movie has already established that not only is this something Ted Cord would totally add, but as established earlier, he also has a sense of humor and would find this funny. The Reyes family eventually get inside Victoria's base and find out just how many OMACs Victoria made and set bombs. While that happens, Jaime is slowly dying from the schematics transfer. This leads to one of the most beautiful scenes in the movie. Jaime is taken to another world. Is it heaven? Is he hallucinating? It's entirely up to your interpretation, but in this scene he has one last conversation with his father, and they finally come full circle about their role in life. His dad tells him that he's found his purpose, and as Jaime finally lets go, he stares into the abyss as the world breaks around him, finally ready to accept Kaji and his calling as Blue Beetle. This moment is beautiful. It resolves Jaime's uncertainty about his role, and it completely comes full circle with his father's last words. There's just no way to describe it, but it's beautiful. Anyway, Carapax finally gets the Scarab's schematics and upgrades from his rinky-dink armor into a badass comic-accurate look. Jaime also gets free, and the scientist watching him lets him go, but not before getting viciously stabbed by Carapax. Holy shit, that's dark. And yes, I know that now you'll finally wag your finger in defiance and say aha, so now it's good guy vs villain with the same powers as him, but here's the thing, it's still not a bad idea. In fact, Carapax and Jaime's stories will intersect and have multiple things in common. We'll discuss it later, but it's not just being lazy, it also serves a thematic purpose. Anyway, Jamie gets out thanks to his nana but realizes Milagro is still inside. After a pep talk from his mom, he goes back in, ready to kick ass in another fight scene. Holy shit, it's the spike arms from Injustice 2. I don't think I've sung the prop team's praises yet, but the construct props in this movie are absolutely phenomenal. This fight isn't bad either. We really get to see Jaime go all out with his arsenal. It's just a shame they'll only be used for the scene here, but it's cool to see them while they last. Jamie finds Mealy and Rudy gets her out before Jamie gets knocked into the sky by Carapax, and Jamie gets a pretty sweet quick change combo in. We also get to see some of Carapax's constructs, and a cool detail is that Carapax's OMAC is still more militaristic, still showing that this thing was clearly man-made. The two land, and after some struggling, Jamie brings out the Buster Sword. This big mama jamma is probably the coolest looking of all Jaime's constructs, but I might be a teensy bit biased. I've always had a thing for comically large swords. The two clashing is really freaking cool, but Carapax gets the upper hand once again, mirroring the first fight down to the Rudy throwing something bit. I will admit though, it is pretty lame that he finished him off with a mega laser blast. Maybe a giant reach bot mode would probably be cooler. Jenny gets kidnapped, but thanks to the exploding gum she gets out. Anyway, this next scene is really freaking good too, with Jaime finally laying it into Carapax with a pretty sweet combo, not gonna lie, but in another mirror to the first fight, Jaime is finally coming out on top. Before Jaime can finish him off though, Kaji shows him Carapax's backstory and memories. Carapax grew up in a wartime era and never knew what love truly was, apart from his mother's, but after her death and brutal war he changed and became cold and vicious. Paralleling Jaime's current situation, acting as a mirror to what he could become if he goes down this path. Bro, these thematic parallels are so good, I freaking love this. Jaime lets Carapax go, ham-fists the lesson in one last time, and Carapax drags that manipulative SOB Victoria into the fire and maxes out his suit's reactor, symbolically letting go of his hate. I think it wasn't super clear for me. The Reyes family finally get their well-deserved mourning in, and later on the community come together to repair the Reyes home, and with core technologies now under Jenny, the neighborhood is saved and Jamie finally scores. There's also an end credits scene teasing Ted's return, but whatever. And that was what I think is the greatest comic book superhero movie of all time. Has it hit you why yet? Well, I'll tell you, it's about respect. Respect for the original source material, respect for the original world that these characters have come from, and respect for the character themselves. I will admit change is needed to make a comic book superhero movie fit a singular cohesive narrative, but when directors start changing things for no reason, it clearly shows a lack of respect on their part. This is why shit like Echo and Miss Marvel piss me off so much. The directors clearly have no respect for the characters that they've been given and are only doing this for a freaking paycheck. And this also goes for most of the greater MCU too. They don't adapt the characters, they're only adapting the idea of the characters and certain plot points. But why it worked well before was because everything before Endgame was treated with respect, and they managed to create another world that, while not completely respecting the original characters, completely respected the world and story which they've built. But now it seems like they've lost their way, and until they can find that respect for the original characters again, I think the Monsterverse and hell, even the DCU will leave them in the dust, because at least James Gunn is an actual fan with respect for the original source material, and until someone at Marvel cares a whole lot, nothing is going to get better. I'm going to rate Blue Beetle a 10 out of 10. This has been Ang the Lemon, and I'll see you next time.
Butterfly Boy.
Go back to the Renaissance Fair.
Oh, I will.